Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining Colliers and WeWork India for the webinar on Changing Landscape of Workplace Strategy. I'm Sukanya Dasgupta, Head of Marketing and Communications for Colliers in India. I think we can all agree that the COVID-19 pandemic has altered the way CREs build their real estate strategy. Let us find out from this exciting session today that has Mr. Amit Oberoi, Executive Director, Corporate Solutions at Colliers International, and Mr. Varun Gopinath, Head of Sales, WeWork India. The session will be moderated by Vineet Singh, Group CMO, Embassy Group, and Head of Brand and Marketing, WeWork India. For ease of process, I'd request everyone to please type in your questions in the questions tab that you can see, and we'll be happy to pick up those questions during the Q&A session post the panel discussion over. Without much ado, I hand it over to you, Vineet.
Thank you, Sukanya. It's a pleasure being here. Welcome, Amit. Welcome, Varun. Just a brief introduction. Amit here, Executive Director at Corporate Solutions with Colliers International, leads the Corporate Solutions Account Management Hub in India and Colliers Asia Occupier Consulting Platform. Amit has about close to 18 years of work ex across real estate, successfully concluding land, office, and capital market transactions. Welcome, Amit. A pleasure to have you on board. Varun, your Head of Sales, WeWork India, and also a very dear friend. He heads sales for WeWork India across sales and revenue channels, such as consumer, mid-market, growth, enterprise. Prior to joining WeWork, Varun has been Senior Director for Strategic Partnerships, New Business and Retail Sales at LendingCart, and has worked at various game-changing organizations like Snapdeal, IBM, and Accenture. So welcome the both of you. I think this is an exciting topic and, something that everyone wants to talk about now. Workplace, workspaces, work from home. So what we'll try to do in the next about 30 to 40 minutes before we take audience question is try and address this entire environment and scenario that we're in. So just starting off, guys, I mean, if both of you could just give me a brief intro of how has the lockdown been for both of you? Like personally, what have you guys been up to? What's keeping you guys busy, and how's work from home treating you? Amit, you can go first. Oh, Varun.
Oh, okay. Varun, go ahead. You can go first. That's fine.
So I think the lockdown has been fairly interesting because it's given us a lot of insight on what exactly is happening, not just in India, but also across the globe. Even from a business standpoint, I think it's also brought in a lot of innovation across different domains, given us a point of view of understanding how fragile we are in the entire ecosystem, right? Me, for one, I think I've gone more on the spiritual path as compared to anything else and picked up newer hobbies, never cooked before, but started that during the lockdown. Cleaning, of course, has been every man's dream during this period. And I think, Vineet, you can add your 2 cents also on that. But I think at an overall level, it's also given us a very strong foundational understanding of what is required for business sustainability in terms of what measures do we really need to take on a day-to-day basis just to ensure that things like this do not impact businesses' revenues and even the entire context of business survival is not impacted. I think a lot of companies, and I think Amit will of course throw more light from a CRE perspective also. A lot of companies will start building up backup plans in terms of what are plan Bs and plan Cs that will be required, not just for their survival and growth, but also in terms of the aspect in terms of employee safety as well as employee security in such situations. So yeah, it's been interesting and it continues to be the same way.
Interesting and it continues to be. What do you think, Amit? How's the lockdown been treating you?
Look, I like to talk more about the positives, and I used to travel every week. And I haven't done that for 100 days, so that's a record for me in the last 15 years. Family is happy so far. I'm not sure how long though. Children are very happy to have me home every day, play with them, play cards with them, spend more time with them, which I really haven't done. So happy on that aspect. And there's been a lot of learning. Like Varun said, it's been a time to introspect on a lot of things that we took for granted. We took for granted that the only way to work was to be in office. Understanding what is business continuity to me is huge. Understanding the fact that online platforms are sort of taking off and are able to replace to a certain degree day-to-day interaction. I mean, we've all been thrown into this new experiment called work from home. We're all, working from home, trying to figure things out. But understanding what business continuity means, understanding having a plan B, understanding how do you make your operations better, take that time to think about it. This is the year, I call it the year of the survival, and we are all going through very challenging times. It is about surviving and then coming up very strong in 2021. So to me, it's been very interesting. It's been a lot more time with family, a lot more work-life balance, better for me. But at the same time, made me think a lot more than I've done in the last 15 years. You're so caught up with day-to-day routine now. It's given you that time to think a little more than that what I've done in the last 15, 18 years.
Interesting point, Amit, when you say year of survival and just jumping into the topic with that line in mind. From a real estate market perspective, are we seeing any new trend in this year of survival? I mean, how is this year of survival impacting the real estate market?
So look, when I say year of survival, I also mean year of survival for everyone else, whether it's a startup, whether it's established multinational corporations, it is the same for everyone. Revenues are not the same. Similarly, in real estate, for example, I'll give you compared to H1 absorption of office real estate, H1 in 2020 as compared to 2019, Bangalore is down about 20-25%. Hyderabad, Mumbai are down about 50%. So it is slow in terms of real estate absorption, and it is very understandable because things have been on a standstill, and we don't know when the new vaccine will be out or when we will have herd mentality. And as per WHO, there is nothing called herd mentality. So we are all going through it is like walking in the unknown, right? So to that extent, I mean year of survival, but it is also the year when we will do a lot more innovation. We'll come out to be much smarter than we were in the way we operated earlier. So to that extent, yes, we will be much smarter in the way that we operate from before. Two key things that have come up in the real estate segment. One is work from home. Everyone's talking about work from home, and to me, it's still a little early. It's still a little early to figure out what percentage of people will eventually always work from home. I'm on the camp which believes that offices will always remain anchors. You will have to have offices to go to. To me, that's the place where my creativity is the most. I need social interaction. We did a survey recently, about 4,000 people globally and about 500 odd people in APAC. And what came out was that 70% are itching to go back to work office. What also came out at the same time was that about 83% people felt that work from home at least one day a week is something that they want to do because it leads to better work-life balance. What 63% people said that they can do focused individual work much better at home than they're able to do at the office. So it goes both ways, right? I do believe there will be a certain degree of work from home. Let's say before COVID, pre-COVID, if someone went in a typical office to his boss and said, I'm going to work from home, it was looked down upon. Now with this, it is suddenly something which is more acceptable. So I do think there will be a degree of work from home, but I don't think it will replace offices like a lot of people want to.
Taking a cue from that, Varun, flexible workspaces or maybe the new age workspaces as the normal people, the population wants to call, flexible spaces like WeWork. What are you seeing from a trend perspective on this whole work from home topic that Amit was talking about, right? Which is essentially you see leading because a lot of people were when you talk about flexible workspaces or you talk about spaces like WeWork, they say there's a lot of a lot of connection and collaboration that brings these spaces alive, right? So what do you think? I mean, is this going to work, the work from home concept, from the audience that you are catering to?
So I think that's very interesting, and I really liked the point that Amit made, predominantly on the fact that early on, when people used to discuss work from home, it used to be looked down upon, right? And you had to go and take permissions saying, hey, can I work from home? Companies used to ponder over facts saying that maybe things will not work if people are working out of home. But right now, with what COVID has done for us, work from home will become a norm in terms of people adjusting to the entire concept. But can work from home replace your existing workspace model? I, for one, do not believe in that. Because I think at any given point of time, whether it's a flexible workspace or whether it is traditional real estate, people require the social interactions that workspaces provide, right? There's a lot more flexibility that kicks in when you are actually visiting a physical workspace. If you're just continuously involved in a work from home attitude, there is no bifurcation between your personal life as well as your professional life, right? Your start times and the end times are all blended together. There was this very interesting thing that even Google did, right? On one of those days during the lockdown period, Google came back and announced a holiday in terms of a long weekend to take care of the work from home burnout. A lot of people need to also understand that flexible workspaces allow you an opportunity so that you can diversify, work across different workspaces, interact with people, share ideas. Innovation growth are driven when a group of people come together, interact on ideas, and discuss on the potential opportunities and avenues that can come out of it. So for me, I think the flexible workspaces, especially like WeWork, will be able to attract even more number of companies and talent to come into our workspaces, right? Because what we typically provide would be not just limited to one location, but across different locations within the city, or options which are closer to your workspaces or your residential hubs. So yeah, in that sense, I think there is a more crucial benefit that comes in to the workspaces which are flexible, aside to the entire work from home model.
That's interesting, Varun. And Amit, from a point of that, when Varun is saying, collaboration and connections, go out and create a lot more innovation and challenges and excitement for you at a workspace. Are there conversations that enterprises or corporate leaders are having with Colliers, or other firms on what they are looking to change, or what are their biggest concerns from a workplace as compared to what it was earlier? They wouldn't have had the concern earlier, but now with the COVID scenario, what are the biggest concerns that they feel is coming in? And are they having conversations with you in terms of how they can see this whole scenario change, and what workspaces have to do better to welcome back enterprises or employees back to work?
Before I answer that question, I want to give a very interesting fact, and it relates to what Varun was saying earlier. Yahoo had work from home policy for a number of years, 6-7 years, and it was in February 2019, not before that, right? They decided to go back to office. So that's just about a year and a half, and how the world changes in about a year and a half's time, right? And to answer your question, what is changing is I mentioned about two, and I didn't mention about the second one earlier in my earlier answer. Number one is work from home is what everyone's talking about, right? There will be a degree of workforce that will have the option, and I use the word option, and it's not a mandate, it's an option, right? To be able to work from home, and that is going to be the norm going forward. So that is something that will come in. What that will lead to is that the offices will have to be a little more flexible than what they have been. What everyone's talking about today, because COVID is taken over all conversations, is point number two is how hygienic, how safe, how healthy are our workspaces. So that is something which is on top of everyone's mind. So that is what everyone's talking about. Okay, if I send my people back to office, and people are scared, and I can understand people are scared to come back because COVID is not over as yet. You're seeing new peaks in cities like Chennai. You're seeing the number of cases improve in Bangalore. So until we have a vaccine, I think people will have that apprehension to come back to the office. So that is the number one thing that is on every corporate leader's office, because they do realize that people have to come back at certain points of time for a number of reasons. It is because they believe that there is data privacy, there is a sense of belonging once you're in your office, right? People have to come together. Your creativity, innovation is much higher when you're interacting with multiple number of people. People from different departments come up with their own opinion, and then you build that together to build something nice. So those are things that people are worried about. They want people to come back, but at the same time, they have to make sure the offices are hygienic. That's number one. Because of social distancing or physical distancing, offices are not the same as they were before, right? So the other thing that everyone's working right now is to make sure that their offices are social distance enabled, which implies that what they are doing is there is sufficient distance between where you sit. What people want to do, most designers, what they're trying to do is to make sure when you come to your office at this point in time is there is a degree of inflexibility which is built in. So you come, you sit in your place. They don't even want you to go to the cafeteria. They don't want you to mingle. They want you to be where you currently are, so that you're taken care of in that particular place. You're restricting the circulation, which is the antithesis of what the modern trend in offices. But in the longer term, once COVID is over, because of work from home coming in, because of the need for people to work from home and then they come back, and importantly, the need to make space work harder than it has before. When I say make workspace space work harder, is how do you ensure there is more utilization of that space? How do you ensure that you're using it much harder than you did before? So that will require a degree of flexibility. So we saw agile workspaces, ABWs, and other new concepts come in. We'll see a lot more of that coming in. We'll see a lot more of informal discussions. It's the model that WeWork and other co-working operators have brought to India. I'll see a lot more of that coming in our traditional offices as well. Requiring a more and what these spaces do, because they are flexible, they're no fixed seat. You go and you sit whatever is available, and you are encouraged to sit in multiple seats. Is it leads to the office being more egalitarian? Traditional Indian offices, the boss has the biggest desk, right? Once you have, once you are going flexible and the boss comes in, doesn't come one day a week, the employee doesn't come one day a week, and you want to make the space work harder. What do? You have to have all seats be equal. And that is something which will come in, and that goes really well with what the millennials want. They do not want hierarchy. So those are interesting changes that will come in post-COVID. I see that happening in the phase 3.
Thanks, Amit. It's interesting you said the boss has the biggest table. I don't remember when was the last time I had the biggest table at any place where I worked at. Either I was always working at a cool workplace, or I was never the boss. Yeah. So I think that's what's happened. There's this. What is WeWork doing, right? And I'm not talking about safety and hygiene. We know all flexible workspaces and across traditional workspaces as well are taking a lot of steps across to allay any fears around safety and hygiene. But from, like Amit was saying, from flexible options or from going out and giving your members or even potential members a lot of more flexibility. What is WeWork bringing to the table that is different from what it was already doing 2 months back?
Very interesting, right? Because so we need at any given point of time at WeWork, we've always tried to provide a member-first experience, which means let's try and solve a problem that our members are facing, and the kind of solutions that we've also innovated through this entire period of COVID. I think I'll bucket it into, say, 2 or 3 verticals. Number one is, like Amit mentioned, space utilization. Am I making the space work harder for me? So we've had a lot of companies come to us and say, you know what, we understand you guys are doing everything related to cleanliness, social distancing, putting the right operational measures in place, my employees will feel safer to come in. But guess what? People are still very much afraid to come. Is there a possibility for you to give us some kind of flexibility in the utilization of space? Which means I am a company that has 100 employees occupying a WeWork space, but I just want 30 people to come in at a rotational piece, right? 30 people come in the morning, 30 come in the afternoon, and 30 come in the evening. And these 30 can be different from a company standpoint. Can you help me with a solution on that? That for us is one of the biggest takeaways as a solution that we are providing to companies. Number two is rotational workforces, where people come and tell us our employees trust WeWork. We think you guys are providing the right measures, but then people don't want to travel. Maybe they're not equipped with cars, they're not equipped with bikes. Public transportation is not something that they trust. Can you help us with solutions where people can occupy spaces which are closer to their residential locations? Say, let's take an example for Bombay, right? In Bombay, your buses and trains form the lifeline for transportation. And not everybody wants to drive a car or take a motorbike to go to work. And now when your trains and buses are not working, how do you solve for people who want to come to office? By giving them the flexibility of working out of any WeWork location, right? You pick an office that you want and you work out basis a contract that you've already signed with us. There is nothing additional that you have to do. Number three, of course, is people asking for short-term swing space kind of demands, wherein people are saying, I have a huge office space already, which is in the traditional side. But of course, because of all the limitations that are available, can WeWork provide me with short-term solutions, right? It can be in terms of access, it can be in terms of office space requirements, or it can just be in terms of the fact that my teams want to come out, do meetings. Can we utilize your meeting rooms, right? So what we've done is we've used our real estate space in the best possible manner to ensure that every member requirement is being taken care of. And member, of course, is a client for us, right? I think the bigger thing that will keep coming on is when companies now start to evaluate the kind of monetary outflow that they're going to have. See, at the end of the day, the business impact that COVID has brought in a lot of impact in terms of your balance sheets and your P&Ls. Everybody right now is trying to look at cash conservation. And I remember a very famous webinar that had just come up at the start of the COVID season where the tagline was that cash is the king. Conservation of money is of paramount importance to every enterprise or every small business out there. So what people are looking out for is a space which is flexible for them, which gives them the flexibility to come in, go, bring in some people, expand by a larger scale, contract by a larger scale, right? Flexibility. Second, safety and operational efficiency. Are my employees going to feel safe when they step into a WeWork? Are you following the right sanitization protocols? Do you have top-notch cleanliness that is kicking in? Amit brought out a point, right, where people are coming to office, but they are, sitting apart, 6 feet apart, or maybe in different segments of the office. Are they enjoying spending time with people? At WeWork, the design philosophy that we've had has benefited us during the COVID period, because even because of the design elements, we've had bigger interactions of employees coming to work. We've had members coming to us and saying, how safe them and their employees are feeling by coming into our workspace. So when people are completely aware and they are strong in their belief that the workspace is, say, clean and taken care of, they then look at something which is more in terms of their financial outflows. Am I spending less money? Am I able to provide the best services at the best possible outflow from a business standpoint? I think so. We need all these things amalgamate to create a solution for us. And we've been fortunate enough to support almost 40,000 of our members across India purely by these measures.
Cash is king is what you said, and it pretty much was a topic of discussion for the longest time in the last couple of months. Amit, what do you think? Are there any innovative real estate strategies for limiting cash outflow? How can leaders optimize their portfolio strategy even better to conserve cash? Amit,
Sorry,
can
I
you hear
couldn't
me?
hear you. Can you repeat that again?
Cash
I can hear you now,
is,
please.
yeah. So cash is something that Varun was talking about. Cash is king, he mentioned. So from your perspective, are there any innovative real estate strategies for limiting cash outflow? Or how are leaders looking to optimize their portfolio strategy a lot better to conserve cash?
So look, what's happening now and Varun mentioned this, is about travel, right? One of the biggest concerns. Uh, I'll give you an example. For example, when I go to Bangalore and I travel to Bangalore and I do meetings, if I do 4 meetings, that's the end of my day. I spend probably 4 hours on the car, do half an hour, 3 meetings, half an hour, and I'm done, assuming they're not in the same IT park, right? So one of the problems that you have, and the same thing happens, it's not just me, same thing happens with employees as well, right? If you are an employee of an organization and you're living in multiple locations and your office is in one place, why should you be going to that office every day? So what people are trying to do is they're trying to come up with what we in Colliers call the core and flex model, which implies that you have a core office and then you have multiple flex offices. What you're trying to do, therefore, is give them the opportunity to be able to sit in multiple locations. Uh, Everyone talks about, people hardly ever talk about what organizations want to do for their employees. Uh, Organizations per se want to keep and retain good employees. They want to have policies which get the best people in their organization, right? So work-life balance will be a key feature that will come in. It may not be immediate cash, but it is something which will yield to greater productivity and therefore more cash at some point in time, right? So this core and flex and core model that we believe in is something having a core office, and then you could have multiple offices within a particular city. You could have an office in, for example, Whitefield. You could have it on the outer ring road. You could have an office somewhere else. Now that is something that is going to happen more often. What is also happening now is organizations are not very sure of what their headcount numbers will look like. There is a lot of uncertainty, right? Especially now, once COVID is over, hopefully things will come back to normal. But even prior to that, if I went to a CRE head and I said, give me your 5-year headcount projections, it would take them a long time to come back and tell me what their 5-year projections look like, right? So there is a degree to want to be flexible. Therefore, this is where co-working firms came up and said, okay, we'd give you that flexibility wherein I don't have to spend on my capex. My lease terms are much shorter than what they are in the traditional real estate space, and my ability to grow. Or if I am, let's say, an organization that wants to come into a new geography, what do? I don't want to be in a traditional office and be locked in for 4 or 5 years of lock-in. And I don't want to spend my capex. I don't want to spend on a receptionist. I want to be there at least. So use that as a swing space maybe, or maybe use that as a policy going forward to say that, look, I want to be in a flex space. At the time, I'm very sure that this new geography is where I want to be. So these are things that organizations, corporates are doing to ensure that there is more flexibility in their real estate than there was before. So these are some of the things, corporate leaders are talking about.
Yeah. I'm going to start taking a few questions that are coming in as well. And I'd request everyone who's putting in a question to also put in their names so that we can address you, and the panelists can address your questions directly. There's a question that's coming for Varun, but I'm actually going to flip it and ask Amit this question, and you'll know the reason why. Is COVID-19 pandemic a boon or bane for co-working in the long term? And you know why I didn't ask Varun is because I'm sure Varun's answer was going to be it's a boon. I hope, Varun. Yeah. So I hear from a neutral perspective, Amit. What do you think on the long term? Do you think this is actually going to be that booster or that catalyst that is going to change the whole game for the co-working or the flexible workspace world?
Okay, so I'll try and answer it in 2 parts. Number one is, if you look at the percentage of co-working versus traditional real estate that any modern city like London, New York, or others have, and compare it with what we have in India, we can even compare it with Seoul, Tokyo, and other Shanghai for that matter. Typically, they do about 5 to 7, 8% in the CBD areas. If you look at it in India, it's about 1.5%. So we still had a lot of catch up to do, right? So first and foremost, and to answer that question, why there is a catch up? Because there is it's not that it's taking away the space from a traditional office. It is both. You are creating a new business opportunity. You're creating a new segment. You are letting startups, MSMEs, and others come to a traditional and nice office and get the facilities that they wouldn't have otherwise because they just didn't have the scale or to be able to do that earlier. So it is a boon, and it is also an opportunity for companies who are going to a new geography and not sure about that geography. So that's the kind of area that you cater to. So that is what was happening traditionally. Now with COVID coming in, and I'm taking a little bit from what I answered earlier, there is a fair degree of uncertainty in the market. Now, because of that uncertainty, people want to be in a co-working. Some of the clients want to be in a co-working environment. So I believe, therefore, there will be greater play for co-working players even post-COVID. I think I wouldn't call it I wouldn't say that it's a bonanza or anything, but yes, there will be a greater thrust for co-working operators. That's the way I see it. There was a lot of catch-up to do, and now there is additionally more reasons for one to be in a co-working environment.
Thanks. Varun, there's a question for you. And this is not just from a flexible workspace standpoint, but from an industry standpoint. Will occupiers across traditional and flexible workspaces alter their RE strategy due to the pandemic, or this is just temporary and you will see things falling back in place if there is a vaccine or if there is a solution to the problem that we're currently seeing? What do you think? Is this going to shape industry from a long-term perspective, or is this going to be it's more a short-term need of the hour strategy that is going on right now?
So Vineet, I think situations like this that we're facing right now typically define the kind of solutioning that comes in, not just for the short term, but for the long term. I think real estate players, companies, developers will definitely have a tweak in the kind of strategies that they've been building around occupiers, as well as around clientele that is going to take up space, within, say, any and every market in India. I think one of the stress points that we always tend to forget is a situation like COVID is not a situation that just comes and goes in a short period of time. Today it's COVID, tomorrow it can be something else. What a lot of real estate players have realized is there needs to be a plan B or a plan C in how we look at space, not just for our utilization, but from an employee perspective also, right? So that will typically mean that people will start asking the right questions, which means, what is the kind of space that my employees require, right? How much of space do I actually require as a core model, like Amit pointed out, right? Do I need a core which is spread across all the requirements that I have, or do I just need a central HQ system in place with distributed workspaces which provide flexibility to my employees to come in? I think from an industry standpoint, there are going to be a lot more innovative things that will come in, whether that is, how is it that you bring in more productivity from work from home, or how is it that you bring in more collaboration in a setup where social distancing also becomes a norm, not just at the workplace, but also in terms of all the meetings and clienteles that you manage and go after. So I think the opportunities are immense. You just need to pick up which vertical is going to benefit more, or which vertical will provide you with greater employee experiences as compared to how things are being run right now. So yeah, core and flex is going to be a big advantage that is going to come in. Real estate players focusing on things which are not just about giving a particular floor or half a floor, just as a fixed contract for 9 years or 6 years coming in. A lot of people are going to have a lot more questions in terms of longevity, flexibility, safety, in spite of any and every scenario that the future holds for us.
Nice. Juicer wants to know, Amit, from you, if what role will modular products like raised access flooring systems play in having a flexible workspace post the pandemic?
Interesting question and a hard one too.
Very specific from
Yeah, very specific. And I will first and foremost, I'm not from a project management background, so I am struggling to answer this question. But I'm not going to get into raised flooring, but I will try and answer that offices will be a lot more flexible. Offices will need to be a lot more flexible than they were before. I think there will be more ABW than there was before. There will have to be a lot more thought in offices. It's not just about building in cubicles and then having an office. It will change. To that effect, yes, there will be tweaks in the office. And I know I've not answered the question, but like I said, I'm not a technical expert on this. Yeah.
That's okay, Judah. We'll have someone answer that question for you from our team, and we'll send it out to you later. Varun, this question's for you, and this is from Jay, and the question is that do what you love, and working on this whole concept of empowering startups is what WeWork came into the world and came into India with. Now, do you think the strategy is going to change in a long-term perspective after Corona? Not just for WeWork, but all other co-working players as well. Focus more on enterprise than smaller members or smaller startups.
Fairly interesting question, Jay, and thank you for that. So, Vineet, I think there's been a lot of talk, a lot of chatter around how maybe flexible workspaces will take up more of enterprises as compared to mid-market companies or consumer companies. As a sales leader who's looking at it on a day-to-day scenario, I feel that the opportunities across each of these segments is immense. Of course, from an enterprise standpoint, you have a longer-term commitment in place, which secures the revenue flow that you are booking on day one itself. What we've also seen is the commitment that our smaller members have shown during this pandemic, right? We've not seen a lot of our small members coming back to us and saying, hey, my business is not doing too well. I just need to move out today or tomorrow. Our business leaders have come back to us with a request of how we can restructure the contracts that we've already had with them. A lot of companies, especially the mid-market as well as consumer companies, have come back to us with growth conversations because they've realized that this is also the period where they can negotiate better, maybe expand more across different segments and across different cities. So at least for me, I think, and from a WeWork perspective overall, we are going to see a huge amount of influx coming in across the segments. But yes, the industries that were maybe doing extremely well pre-COVID might take some more time to grow within the post-COVID scenarios. You're going to have newer industries like edtech, healthcare, health tech that will start taking up more space, flexible spaces at most of our locations. So I think it is going to be a continued mix that we've always enjoyed at WeWork. And yeah, we look forward to seeing many more companies to come and join us.
Sahil wants to know, Amit, will sale and leaseback model come in on a large scale post the pandemic?
Would sale and leaseback? Interesting question, Sahil. Yes and no. So let me try and answer this. Companies which have cash are looking at buying as real estate assets. So there will be a degree of sale or purchases that may happen. I personally believe you have to be a little contrarian in your thinking. So when the markets are a little down, when there are people who would be willing to give you a bit of a discount to buy an asset, it would be a good time. So purchase would be a good time to do this. Would sale and lease back, would companies who are in trouble would want to give it up to investors and then lease back? Conceptually, yes, that may be a good idea to do at this point of time. Sale and lease back would be a good idea to do it. The challenges is sometimes in the way that we put our P&Ls together and the way we do our accounting. That in India sometimes becomes a challenge, and we don't see as many of these sale and leasebacks as we probably see overseas. But logically and rationally thinking, yes, I think sale and leaseback is a good option to go forward with. Yeah.
Varun, Nikita wants to know, and her point is, it's clear that co-working has great potential, so much so that hotels entering the same space to lure consumers and sustain themselves. With an obvious increase in competition in an already crowded world, how and what do you think flexible workspaces or co-working spaces, what should they be doing to stand out?
So, Vineet, I think, all right. So from newer players coming in or hotels coming in into the entire co-working space, is that a threat to the existing market that exists in co-working? I think no. Because see, at the end of the day, competition is always good. Uh, if hotels are jumping in into providing space solutions, that means there is a demand for a particular price point, which the hotels are trying to cater to. What I look at or what WeWork typically looks at is a very solution-centric approach where what is it that people are looking for, not just in the short term, but also in the long term, right? So my flip question to that would be, will hotels continue to run office spaces, say in the long term, say 12 years down the line, 12 months down the line, 24 months down the line? I'm a strong believer of what are the comparative and competitive strengths that every company brings to the table. Building office solutions is my forte, right? That is what WeWork is good at. Providing the best member experience for people to come in is again our forte. So I think in the long haul, of course, we'll learn a lot. A lot of new innovative solutions can come in because of competition. But for us to look at this as major threats is not typically the right lens to look at. Because even during the pandemic and after that, we've been in constant conversations with a lot of enterprise as well as mid-market companies on how we could substitute the kind of space requirements that they have today and build out plans not just for the next 12 months, but say for the next 3 years. Can I provide a solution which is more real estate / employee centric, which doesn't just solve your problem for today, but solves your problem and benefits your cash flow for the next 36 months? So if people are willing to have those conversations, it's only then that stickiness with your clientele uh, is retained over a long period of time.
Staying at the co-working spaces and flexible office spaces topic, Amit, Pathik has a question. Um, are we going to be seeing more co-working spaces being set up in suburban areas of the cities? Currently, a lot of them are concentrated in and around business districts. And do you see conversations already happening across the category on co-working spaces or flexible spaces coming up near residential suburbs?
Okay, the question more difficult as we move forward. So interesting question. If I understand correctly, yes, if you look at Bangalore, for example, I'd say about what 50-60% of the co-working seats are in the CBD area, and they are now moving to off CBD and slowly moving out towards the suburbs as well. So yes, to a degree, you will see more co-working spaces coming up in suburbs, provided there is a requirement. What typically happens is, if I am an IT firm and if I have offshore development centers, then obviously my propensity to go towards a co-working is slightly lower. You know, you want to do it in-house and you want to have the security and other features built in. So will IT firms generally tend to go to a more cheaper location to be in. So the question is, what is the suburb really catering to? Who's the suburb really catering to, and who is it that will come and take up that space? I don't see any reason why there can't be co-working spaces in the suburbs. I mean, as long as there is a business model, as long as it is financially feasible, why not? I don't think that should be an issue. The second question, I didn't understand whether it can be in a residential space or not. I don't think you would want to have a co-working or an office space within a residential area. Again, the question is whether the development norms will allow you to have one within a residential society or not. But I guess the question is, a lot of people come from the suburbs and then work in the CBD areas. So will their offices be close by? To that, the answer is yes. The whole idea is to have multiple offices. The whole idea is for someone to have a chain and have a multiple number of offices. So If I'm a salesman and I'm going and I have to meet a number of people across the city, I want to be able to have various touch points where I can call my office and go there and be able to. So scale becomes important, which then answers back to Varun's last question: can a hotel, if they have a multiple number of chains, can you build that or not? It's a solution has to be specific, right? And it works best if it is a specific solution to your problem. But if you try and force fit a solution, sometimes it doesn't work. No offense. No, I don't mean anything against hotels. And if it works for them, great. And a lot of co-working spaces are in hotels and do well. Good for them. I hope I answered if I understood that correctly.
You did, Amit. And just continuing on that, Varun, this question for you, taking a leap from what Amit just said. Can we expect flexible workspaces in tier 2 and tier 3 cities, as most of the employees have moved out to their hometowns, where infrastructure is a major challenge, and enterprises now tapping on talent which is across the country? Do you think there is a massive opportunity for flexible workspaces to be in tier 2 and tier 3 as well?
So again, right, very interesting view to look at. Let's look at the current scenario. So pre-COVID, you had, so of the 800 to 900 co-working players that are there in India today, pre-COVID, close to 85% of all co-working spaces in terms of occupancy, in terms of businesses, came from Maharashtra, which is Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi NCR, which is Gurgaon, Delhi, as well as Noida. A portion of it was coming in from Chennai, Hyderabad. Everyone is a metro city. Every single one of it is more in terms of metro or tier 1 cities. Do we have opportunities in tier 2, tier 3? Of course. If you look at every industry started off with your metros and tier 1s and expanded into your tier 2s, tier 3s. E-commerce companies call that as the Bharat workforce. And I think so will the workspace providers or everybody else come up with a very similar term in that sense. Do we have the infrastructure support to build something out in tier 2, tier 3? I think tier 3 will take far more time as compared to what tier 2 will take. But say in the next 2 to 3 years, if there are industries and companies moving bases to tier 2s from tier 1s, you definitely have an opportunity to set up co-working spaces in the tier 2 areas. What will be the bigger challenges that kick in? A will be, what is the rate of adoption for co-working spaces in such areas? Does price become one of the biggest drivers in selection of workspaces in such areas? Number 3, what kind of companies or industries would be working out of these places where co-working companies can maybe form like a marriage to build out the right amount of infrastructure which is required? So from a 50,000 feet, yes, anything and everything is possible. We would just need to double click and see what is the kind of demand spectrum that crops up after the COVID-19 vaccine comes out and things start becoming normal. But there is going to be some expansion coming in, and you will see some more players coming up across these segments to bring up newer opportunities in terms of co-working.
If I could just...
Yes, please.
Vineet, if you don't mind, if I could add, I think there is an opportunity in tier 2, maybe less in tier 3 cities. I do think there's an opportunity. The reason I say that is, whenever a client has a requirement in a tier 2 city, the number of grade A opportunities that one is able to source are fairly limited. To that extent, yes, there is a requirement. The moot question is, how big is that opportunity? Yes, it's not as big as it is unless companies start to have more, less technologically advanced, if I may use that word, services move to tier 2 cities. Then yes, there will be a greater opportunity. But yes, to me, there are opportunities in select cities today because A, there is very limited options and you are able to build that. So I do believe, I mean, my opinion is that there is an opportunity today.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Amit. Varun, cash is king, innovation, culture, flexible workspaces, a lot more new trends across the category. Great insights across the conversation that we had with both of you. I'd like just closing remarks from both of you on the current scenario and where we're going with this. And then we will be ending the webinar. Amit, do you want to start?
Okay. Yeah, sure. So look, one of the themes that I'm getting from the questions that were asked was, will it fundamentally change the way we do business? Answer is probably no. I don't think it will fundamentally change the way we are. Will it imply that there will be changes? Answer is yes, there will be changes, and I'm hoping it will be changes for the good. There will be a lot more innovation. I believe there will be a lot more thought in the way in which we build offices, because of the fundamental reasons that employers want to keep good talent and they want to attract the best talent for their organization, and a workplace is important for that. To me, yes, there will be changes. Don't expect there not to be changes. I'm sure Varun has spent 3 months. So likewise, there would be a lot of other people who have spent 3 months trying to figure out how to make their models far more efficient, how to add more innovation to the way they do business. And life is not going to come to a standstill. We are going to come back and bounce back much stronger. And once the vaccine is back, hopefully soon, and we're all able to go back to work.
I think, okay, firstly, thank you so much, Amit. It's been a pleasure to be on the same panel as you've been. Very insightful conversations. And of course, Vineet, you've been, totally good in terms of bringing out the right questions and putting us at the right spots. I think you have a knack for it. Thank you so much for that. I think from a closing remarks standpoint, see, COVID obviously has brought some amount of change in the way people look at workspaces, in the way people look at offices, in gradual ways of how we perceive the environment around us. But like Amit pointed out, I think a lot of these changes are going to be changes for the good. I think there is going to be a lot more push that is going to come into asking the right questions of what is it that my employees want? Am I signing up for spaces or real estate which solves not just for my short-term problems, but allows me with long-term flexibility? Am I considering the financial impact that comes in? If God forbid, thing like this comes over again in the near future. And last but not the least, am I able to target the right amount of talent and appreciate the kind of working philosophies that people have, right? Whether they want to work from home, whether they want to work from a place which is closer to their home, or whether they want to follow a very core plus flex model. I think it's going to be fairly interesting to see how real estate structures, modelings, investments are going to change over the next 6 to 12 months, because that will give us a greater insight of where the industry is going to be headed, say for the next 5 to 10 year terms. From a workspace standpoint, I think we at WeWork, we are very confident and bullish of the fact that we will be able to provide people with a lot more experience, plus safety, plus flexibility at our workspaces. And we look forward to seeing what are the additional needs that clients come to us with in terms of servicing their real estate needs. So yes, it's an interesting time ahead, and as always, it's going to be fun to see what happens till the vaccine comes in. So
interesting times ahead. Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Varun. Great, insightful conversation. It's always a pleasure. Thank you to the entire team, Sukanya, Anchit, Shonik, and the team for putting this together. And a big thank you for everyone who tuned in. I hope you enjoyed the session, and I hope everyone's hoping the vaccine comes in soon, just like me, so that we can be back at work. And I hope to see you guys back at work soon, and hopefully it's a WeWork. Thank you. See you guys. Stay safe.
Thank you, Vineet. Thank you, Varun. Thank you. Bye.